themselves. So if they decide to start off kind and set up a Kubernetes server and start spinning up things, that they're aware of the overhead when they do it. I know this is like really convoluted at this point. I've kind of set up a silly system where they have access to only one model and one provider for metrics, and they can do a few things locally. But what I want them to be able to do is one, be introspective, look at themselves, and two, look at the rest of the cluster to make sure that if they're full, that they could send things off to another. Kind of like load balancing, but more like load shedding or sharing in this case. All right, now in this case, you can see we're using the same model, but they're different computers and we're getting different results. Now, in this case, one of them did, in fact, go to up and get some metrics. The other one said it's not reporting its own metrics somehow, which doesn't really make sense. It does have its own app keys. But what I'm going to do here, if you played around with OpenClaw at all, it's got two documents that are pretty interesting. By default, if you don't go through onboarding, you won't fill out your soul.md and you won't fill out your identity.md. So these are, the soul is kind of like, I might get a little bit frilly here, but it's the essence of your agent. And then the identity might be its name or what have you, or some proclivities that it has in terms of the way that it communicates. What I did was told all of these agents to talk to them each other and then figure out if they've actually got an ID that should be smaller for token spend. So for example, one of these is the digital greyhound. That's a lot of tokens. Maybe they could discuss amongst each other if there's a way to reduce the tokens. Now, of course, you're thinking, hey, doesn't this cost a fortune talking to Ollama Cloud, because you've got, I don't know, it looks like 7 or 8 agents here talking to each other. And what I'll say is that the Ollama Cloud, this is not a sales pitch at all, but they're what you get for the monthly fee is fairly liberal. Like, you get a lot of queries and calls. I've yet to get a quota problem or an increase on budget or any of those things. I think perhaps what they're doing right now is trying to get people onto the cloud. The other that you'll notice is that this is often faster than Opus 4.6 or Sonnet 4.6, for example. I find that ChatGPT is pretty quick, but I do find that those two in particular, probably because they're popular, are a little bit slower to respond.